The day my wedding dress was supposed to be delivered, my fiancé handed me a trash bag instead. Inside were my shoes, my favorite sweater, and a leather-bound notebook I had never seen in my life. "I found it in your nightstand, Maya," Liam said. His voice was terrifyingly calm, the kind of calm that precedes a tornado. We were standing in the kitchen of the farmhouse we'd spent 2 years renovating in Northern Virginia. The sunlight was hitting the granite countertops I'd picked out, making everything look cruel and bright. "Liam, I don't know what that is," I said. My heart was thumping against my ribs like a trapped bird. "It's a diary, a secret one, the one where you talk about tea and how you can't wait for the wedding to be over so you can use my family's connection to settle your father's debts." He threw the notebook onto the island. It slid across the stone, stopping inches from my hand. "The one where you laughed about how easy it was to play the sweet, reliable librarian while you were seeing him behind my back in D.C. I stared at the book. It was a moleskin, dark teal with a gold elastic band. I reached out, my fingers trembling, and opened to a random page. The handwriting was looped and frantic, filled with details about a man named Thomas, expensive hotel rooms, and a deep-seated resentment for a boring, predictable fiancé. It looked like my handwriting. At a quick glance, the slant was identical, but as I traced the letters, I saw the tells. The way the T was crossed too high, the way the S curled inward. "This isn't mine," I whispered. "Don't," Liam snapped. He looked at me with a disgust so profound it felt like a physical blow. "I've already called the caterers. I've called the venue. The wedding is off. My mother is notifying the guests." "Liam, look at the dates," I said, my voice cracking. "I was in Richmond with my sister on this weekend. I couldn't have been at the Hay Adams with someone else." "Your sister is the one who helped me find it, Maya. She told me she was worried about you. She saw you acting strange, and when she was helping you pack for the honeymoon, she found it hidden under the floorboard in the closet." The world tilted. My sister, Chloe. Chloe had always been the difficult child, the one who needed rehab at 20, the one who couldn't hold a job, the one our parents constantly bailed out. I was the rock. I was the one who managed the family trust. I was the one who was promised our grandmother's estate in the Willamette Valley, a property worth millions, because I was the only one responsible enough to keep it in the family. The estate was my wedding gift from my parents, or it would have been if the wedding happened. "So Chloe found this?" I asked. "She was crying, Maya. She didn't want to tell me. She felt like she was betraying you, but she couldn't let me marry a lie." Liam picked up his car keys. "I'm staying at my parents' house. Don't call me. I'll send a moving crew for the rest of my things on Monday." He walked out. The heavy oak door clicked shut, and the silence that followed was deafening. I didn't chase him. I didn't scream. I sat down on the kitchen floor, the teal notebook in my lap. I remembered a conversation 3 weeks ago. Chloe had asked me for a $50,000 loan to start a boutique. I told her no. I told her the family trust wasn't a personal ATM and that she needed a business plan. She looked at me with a coldness that should have chilled me then, but I had dismissed it as her usual tantrum. "You think you're so much better than me," she had whispered, "just because you're the one in the white dress." I flipped through the diary again. It was a masterpiece of character assassination. It mentioned specific dates, specific arguments Liam and I had had, and twisted them into evidence of my boredom. It was calculated. It was surgical. But there was one thing Chloe didn't know. I am a librarian, yes, but my specialty isn't just books. It's archival research and digital forensics. And Chloe, in her haste to destroy my life, had left a paper trail that she thought I was too broken to follow. I stood up, wiped my face with the back of my hand, and went to my computer. I didn't cry for the lost wedding. I didn't cry for the man who believed a notebook over the woman who had stood by him for 5 years. I felt a cold, hard knot of resolve forming in my chest. If Chloe wanted a drama, I would give her a tragedy. The next 48 hours were a masterclass in social execution. My mother called me, her voice trembling, not with sadness, but with a sharp, brittle shame. "How could you, Maya?" she asked, "after everything we've done to keep the family name intact? Your father he's beyond words. He's already speaking to the estate attorney. He's putting the Oregon property back into a general trust. He says you've proven yourself just as unstable as your sister." That was the sting. Chloe had managed to drag me down to her level. She hadn't just taken my wedding, she had taken my identity as the reliable one. "I didn't do it, Mom," I said, staring at the teal notebook on my desk. "The diary is a lie." "Chloe saw you writing in it, Maya. She saw you hide it. Why would she lie about something so horrible? She's been crying for 2 days because she feels responsible for ruining your life." I hung up. There was no point in arguing with a narrative that had already been cemented. Instead, I focused on the notebook. I took high-resolution photos of every page. I noticed the ink, a very specific shade of midnight blue. I recognized the pen. It was a Pilot G2 0.7 millimeters. Chloe bought them by the dozen because she always lost them. I checked the T entries again. Thomas. He was described as a lobbyist with a jagged scar on his left palm. I spent 6 hours on the DC lobbying registers and social media. There was no Thomas with a jagged scar on his palm who fit the timeline. But there was a Tyler. Tyler was Chloe's ex-boyfriend from 3 years ago, a man she had obsessed over until he blocked her on everything. She hadn't invented a lover for me. She had simply recycled her own ghosts. Then I looked at the notebook itself. On the back inside cover, there was a tiny, translucent sticker from a boutique stationery shop in Alexandria. Paper and Grace. I drove there on Friday morning. The shop was quiet, smelling of expensive paper and vanilla candles. The clerk was a woman in her 60s with half-moon glasses. "I'm looking for a gift," I said, showing her a photo of the teal moleskine. "Do you carry these?" "Oh, those are lovely," she said. "But we actually sold our last teal one about 2 weeks ago. A young woman bought it, along with a set of midnight blue pens. I remember because she was in such a rush, she left her sunglasses behind." "Was she blonde? About 5'5"? Had a small tattoo of a bird on her wrist?" The clerk nodded. "That's the one. She never came back for the glasses." My heart didn't race. It slowed. It was a cold, rhythmic thrumming. I had the where and the when, but I needed the why to be undeniable. I went to my parents' house that afternoon. I knew Liam would be there. My parents had invited him for support, treating him like the grieving widow of a relationship I had murdered. I walked into the living room. Liam was sitting on the sofa, looking exhausted. Chloe was next to him, her hand resting comfortingly on his forearm. She was wearing one of my old sweaters, the soft cashmere one Liam had bought me for Christmas. It was a visual coup, a silent way of saying she was the better version of me. "Maya," my father said, standing up, "I told you we aren't ready to speak to you." "I'm not here to talk," I said. I looked at Chloe. She didn't look away. She gave me a look of pure, shimmering pity. "Maya, please," Chloe said, her voice soft and trembling. "Don't make this harder. We all know what you did. I'm not even mad that you tried to blame me to Mom. I know you're just hurting." "I'm sure you do, Chloe," I said. I pulled the teal notebook from my bag and set it on the coffee table. "Liam, I want you to look at page 42, the entry about the night we had the argument over the wedding flowers." "I've read it, Maya," Liam said, his voice flat. "You said I was a controlling prick and that you were meeting T at the Willard Hotel to forget me." "Check the date," I said. "June 14th. "So?" On June 14th, the Willard was closed for a private high-security diplomatic event. No one was in or out without a State Department badge. I know this because I was at the library and we provided the historical archives for that specific event. But more importantly, I pulled out a small, clear plastic bag. Inside was the receipt I'd found tucked into the back of Chloe's car earlier that morning while she was inside the house. I had borrowed her keys from the hallway hook. This is a receipt from Paper and Grace in Alexandria, dated June 12th, 2 days before that entry was supposedly written. It's for a 1 teal Moleskine and a pack of blue Pilot pens, paid with a credit card ending in 4402. I looked at my father. Dad, isn't 4402 the secondary card on your business account, the one you gave Chloe for emergencies? The silence in the room became heavy. Chloe's hand slid off Liam's. Her face didn't crumble, it hardened. "She's lying," Chloe said, though her voice had lost its tremor. "She probably stole my card to buy it herself to frame me." "I also have to store security footage," I lied. I didn't have it yet, but the look on Chloe's face told me I didn't need it. "The owner recognized you, Chloe. She even has your sunglasses." Liam looked at the receipt, then at the notebook, then at Chloe. He looked like he was seeing a stranger. "You did this?" Liam whispered. "You called off my wedding for a notebook?" "I don't think she did it for a notebook," I said coldly. "She did it for the Oregon estate. If I'm unstable, the inheritance goes to her. Isn't that right, Dad?" My father looked at Chloe. The disappointment in his eyes was different this time. It wasn't the loud, angry disappointment he usually felt for her. It was a quiet, terminal realization. "Chloe," my father said, his voice sounding old, "go to your room now." "Dad, she's manipulating you." "Now!" he roared. Chloe scrambled up, but as she passed me, she leaned in. "You still don't have a wedding, Maya. She believed me first. Remember that." She was right. Liam was looking at me, his eyes full of a desperate, pleading hope. He reached out to take my hand, but I stepped back. The evidence was out. The truth was clear, but the damage wasn't just in the diary. It was in the way Liam had looked at me 2 days ago, with a hatred that was too easy, too ready. "Liam," I said, his voice cracking, I'm so sorry. I should have known. I was just so hurt, and she was so convincing." I looked at the man I was supposed to marry in 72 hours. I looked at the reliable life I had built. "We need to talk, Liam, but not here, and not as a couple." Liam followed me out to the porch. The air was thick with the scent of honeysuckle and the looming humidity of a Virginia summer. Only 3 days ago, this air had felt full of promise. Now, it felt heavy, like I was breathing underwater. "Maya, please," he said. He reached for my waist, a gesture that used to mean safety. I stepped back, and his hands hovered in the empty air between us. "I'll call everyone back. We can still do this. We'll tell them it was a misunderstanding. We'll have the wedding." I looked at him. Really looked at him. I saw the desperation in his eyes, but I also saw the man who less than 48 hours ago had handed me a trash bag of my belongings without asking a single question. "You called me a liar, Liam," I said. My voice was quiet, stripped of the anger that had carried me through the morning. "You looked at me with more disgust than you've ever looked at a stranger. You didn't come to me and say, 'Maya, I found this, what is it?' You just ended us. You let your mother start the phone tree." "I was blindsided," he argued, his voice rising in that familiar, defensive way. "The handwriting, it looked just like yours, and Chloe was right there, crying, saying she saw you hide it. I thought I didn't know the woman I was sleeping next to." "That's exactly the problem. You didn't know me. If you did, you would have known that I don't keep diaries, I keep spreadsheets. You would have known that I don't go to hotels in DC when I'm grieving with my sister. You would have known my character." I pulled my engagement ring off. It was a beautiful, pear-shaped diamond, classic and timeless. It felt like a piece of glass. I placed it on the railing of the porch. "The wedding isn't just off because of Chloe," I told him. "It's off because I can't marry a man who is that ready to believe I'm a villain." Maya, don't do this. Don't let her win. She didn't win, Liam. She lost her sister, her father's trust, and her inheritance today. But she did me one favor. She showed me who you are before I signed a legal document binding my life to yours. I walked away from him, down the steps to my car. I didn't look back to see if he picked up the ring. That evening, I sat in my father's study. He looked older, smaller, sitting behind his heavy oak desk. He had spent the afternoon with the family attorney. "I've updated the trust," he said, not looking up from the documents. "The Oregon estate is being transferred to you immediately, as a gift. Chloe is being removed as a beneficiary of the primary trust. I've set up a small, restrictive stipend for her, contingent on her moving out of the state and staying in therapy. She's leaving for our cousin's place in Montana on Monday." "I don't want her to be homeless, Dad," I said. "I just want her to stop." "She won't stop as long as she has an audience, Maya. And she's lost hers here." He finally looked up, his eyes red-rimmed. "I'm sorry for believing her, for the things I said." "I know. And I did. But sorry didn't put the wedding dress back in the box." The day that should have been my wedding day was a Saturday. It was 85 degrees and perfectly clear. I didn't spend it in a white dress in a chapel. I spent it on a plane. I landed in Portland and drove 3 hours south to the Willamette Valley. When I pulled up the long, winding driveway of the estate, the sun was setting behind the rows of grapevines. The house was a beautiful, sprawling craftsman, weathered by time, but solid. I let myself in with the key my father had given me. The air inside was cool and smelled of cedar and old paper. I walked through the empty rooms, my footsteps echoing on the hardwood floors. I went out to the back deck that overlooked the valley. It was silent, save for the sound of the wind through the pines. No caterers, no bridesmaids, no Liam. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Liam. "The flowers showed up at the house today. Lilies, your favorite. I didn't know how to stop the delivery. I'm so sorry, Maya. I'm so sorry." I didn't reply. I sat on the porch swing and watched the first stars appear in the vast Oregon sky. Chloe had tried to steal my future by rewriting my past. She thought a teal notebook could change the truth of who I was. But as I sat there, the owner of my own life and 10,000 acres of quiet earth, I realized she had only managed to do one thing. She had cleared the table so I could start over. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath of the mountain air, and for the first time in months, the silence didn't feel lonely. It felt like home. Every story we share here is a piece of a lived truth, finally whispered out loud. If today's journey resonated with you, please subscribe to Quiet Drama Stories and leave a like. Also share your thoughts in the comment section. Your support ensures that these quiet voices are finally heard. Thank you for listening. And remember, you are never as alone as you feel. See you in the next story.